Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back, viewers. Again, my name is Jay. I'm excited to introduce this evening, coming in from the San Diego, California area, special co-host and guest, Rachel Fiori, spiritual leader. Welcome back, Rachel.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Everslove Heath, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home, and he is coming in hot off of, I think he was in the Outback today in the wilderness doing some work with some of his own clients. Welcome. Glad you were able to make it.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Coming in hot, but thank you for being here and looking forward to diving in deep tonight.
And of course, we have Mr. Jeff Fasano. He resides in Nashville. We didn't think you were going to make it tonight, as you've been working, doing what you do best with a camera in front of you at Americana Fest in the Nashville area. What a nice surprise to have you join us tonight, Jeff Fasano. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a good topic. I'm excited. I'm excited. A little tired, but excited.
Unfortunately, Josh Richer is on set in Sony Studios in the heat of the moment on Shark Tank. So unfortunately, he was not able to make it here tonight. We're going to miss you, Josh Richer, but I'm sure you'll pick us up on replay on your downtime. So in any event, what a nice surprise. We tonight thought it was just going to be Everslove and Rachel and myself, but we got a foursome going on here. And tonight, we had both Evis and Rachel landed on our topic. Rachel, since you're on the top shelf with me right now, I want to take a moment here before I invite you to share what tonight's topic is about. I want to take a moment to welcome our viewers and listeners. Welcome back. If you should hear something that you like or love, we invite you to tap your love button on your monitor and light us up. If you should have any questions or comments, please drop them down into the comment section, and I will do my best to acknowledge as many comments as possible. Lastly, let us know where you call home, what city, state, or country you call home. We welcome you back to episode 121. Tonight's topic is, have you met the new you in a new age? And Rachel, what is this topic about tonight? Where are we going? What rabbit hole are we going to jump down into tonight?
Yeah, thank you. So hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here again. It's always such a pleasure to be with you magnificent men. Have you met the new you in the new age? So Evis and I actually started a conversation together about this new golden age of harmony, how humanity is going through this massive global transformation in order to elevate ourselves to become new humans, so to speak, more evolved, more elevated, more loving, more compassionate, more peaceful humans. And that to become that, what does that really mean? It means the old you must die. It's that death, rebirth process, and it doesn't happen just once. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. People tend to go through death, rebirth several times, sometimes numerous times, in order to truly evolve into the most magnificent version of themselves. And our conversation led to, what does that really mean? What does that require of us? Let's gain some really deep divine insight on what this means for us as humans, as individuals, and as a collective. How can we be open to dying, so to speak, and allowing ourselves to be reborn in a more magnificent version of us? And how can we stop resisting this process and falling back into old patterns that are not the most magnificent patterns that we carry? That's what we want to dive into tonight.
Ev, I'm going to invite you to piggyback off of Rachel here and share from your perspective what lit you up in a production meeting this week. How does this topic resonate with you?
100%, brother. And as always, thank you from the bottom of my heart, my brothers and sisters on the other side of the pond, for having me here tonight. And the thing is, I'm just going to say, firstly, number one, you've got to get Rachel Fiori's book. That is one step that you can start getting into this new age, the golden age that we're talking about here tonight. Second step is to start really understanding that this is the death and rebirth life cycle. It just is. As Jay mentioned, I just finished doing a workshop and I talked a lot about our spirituality within the First Nations people. And we just knew that death and rebirth is just the cycle. And one of my things ultimately was really talking about connection. Connection not only with your Mother Earth, obviously, and some of these things that we need to get back connected to, but mostly important, brothers and sisters, connecting back to yourself. Now, like Rachel just said beautifully, this is not connecting back to the old version of yourself. And let's be honest, man, you're going to face your old self that many times, my brothers and sisters. It will keep showing up until you have learnt the lessons and taken the gifts to move forward into this upgraded new version of yourself that we're talking about. Now, one thing for me to be able to get over this bridge after we get past a couple of those steps that I've even just dropped there is really getting past some of the old belief systems that we've been buying into. The hashtag BS crap of the old paradigm. It's buried. It's crumbled. Why do we keep wanting to go back to it? It's simple, because it's the known. We're fearful of the unknown. So when we start to embrace the unknown and integrate this darkness within our life that we keep talking about on Real Men Real Talk Live, it allows us and gives us the potential for infinite possibilities. It allows us to start recreating a story of a new story that we want to see, as opposed to the one that we keep telling ourselves from the past.
Woo!
Coming in hot, sister.
Coming in hot, Ev. Woo!
What do you reckon, Mr. Fasana?
Just for those that are concerned that Ev should drive carefully, he is, in fact,
I'm in the passenger seat.
this evening. So he is doing some self-care. But he showed up right on time, which is absolutely amazing. I want to take a moment here just to welcome a few of our viewers coming in. Elizabeth Richter coming in from the Netherlands. We have Kristen Carabella, I believe, coming in from Ohio. We also have Mo Wilson coming in from Sedona, June coming in from Canada, and of course we have, I think, Victoria Bennett also coming in from Sedona. Sedona is representing tonight. Jeff Fasano, I want to invite you to kind of share from your perspective. Now, to be fair, Jeff had no idea what tonight's topic was even going to be about. He didn't want to know. He showed up and he said, you know what? I want to have some fun with this, not knowing what I'm stepping into. And sometimes that's the best way. It's when we want to be prepared. We spend so much time in our egoic space that we forget to tap into our heart or soul space. And so, Mr. Fasano, you're up, man. What are you making of this topic tonight?
Two things popped into my consciousness. If we're to create this new collective consciousness of peace, community, harmony, and equality, and that is something that is our intention, our endeavor, as Ev just talked about, we have to create that within ourselves. And as I'm going to tell on myself right now. Something happened today while I was shooting, but I don't want to go there right now. That brought me back to an old behavior of mine. And actually, right before this, we were in the green room, Rachel started talking about the topic and it hit me. I went, oh, wow. I stepped into an old place today with what went on in my portrait sessions at Americana Fest. But before I go there, the thing that really pops into my head is, if we want to create this new collective consciousness, I think what we have to do first, of course, if you've been watching Real Men, Real Talk live for all of these episodes, it's about doing the inner work. We've stressed that so much. But the first thing is looking at the outer world, the 3D world, and begin to detach from that low, dense, vibrational aspects of our lives. Many people are so caught up in that world outside of ourselves. And we've really got to step back, as I feel, step back from that world. Because so much of what's going on in the 3D world outside of ourselves, if you're really paying attention to it right now, in the mainstream world, there's really not a lot of harmony and peace and community and equality going on. So it's really important for us to step back from that. And Evis has talked about this an awful lot on the show. It's about coming back into ourselves first, looking at what's going on in the 3D world outside of ourselves, and ask ourselves, how much are we caught up in that? How much are we really caught up in watching the news and looking at what's going on in the political system, the governmental systems, and all of that outside of ourselves? Yes, keep an eye on it, because it does affect us since we are in this human form in this 3D. But I really feel it's about stepping back from it. And if we step back from that, detach from it, we bring it back into ourselves. And the way we can do that is paying attention to our energy, our resonance, and our vibration. If we look at what's happening in the world outside of ourselves, whether that's in the macrocosm of the 3D or in the microcosm of our relationships with others, and simply ask the question, what resonates and what doesn't resonate? And if we are really true to ourselves, we'll move into we'll see what doesn't resonate, and ask us, are we spending an awful lot of time on what doesn't resonate, what doesn't work for us, trying to change that? Or can we move in and find out what resonates? Does peace, community, harmony, equality resonate for us? And it's not about changing what's going on. It's about creating a new collective consciousness of that. And that's what popped into my consciousness in the green when Rachel was telling me what the subject was.
Beautiful. Rachel, I want to bring it back to you. One of the highlights you had touched on was around the way of responsibility. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's one of the universal ways of oneness. There are 20 universal ways of oneness, and these are enlightened characteristics that allow us to create the, when I say enlightenment, I mean harmony. I mean peace within myself allows me to create that out there in the world. You cannot create out there what you haven't first become yourself. Mm-hmm. You create what you are, not what you want. And so that leads us to the very first universal way of oneness, and that's the way of responsibility. The way of responsibility is to see, in a divine definition of that, what I need to awaken to within myself. What are my programs, my patterns that are harmful? What are the wounds inside of me that still get triggered and activated and allow me to fall from grace and behave in a way that I'm a little ashamed of later, or that is harmful to another person? The way of responsibility is I am willing to see every aspect of my shadow self, every way that I have shown up or show up as harmful. And I am willing to do the real work to love those aspects of me so unconditionally that they have no choice but to transcend into the light that I am. That is the way of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-oh. And then there were 3.
That's okay. We flow here.
Yeah. That is that, Rachel, what you just said is fantastic. We cannot create what we want outside of ourselves. And what we can create is what is inside of us. So if we're not in harmony inside of ourselves, if we're at disarray, if we feel where we are, wow, that's really beautiful. Because we can keep on looking outside of ourselves.
Yes.
I want that. I want to create that. I want to create that. And the reason, and a reason could be, you know what? It's not inside of me.
It's not inside of me.
And
if I
then
have disharmony inside of me, I create disharmony out
Right.
there, and I wonder where the harmony is.
And then we'll start chasing outside of ourselves.
Well, there's another component to it, which is that if we're just in it and we're then seeking refuge, or we're seeking to be rescued by something outside of ourselves, it doesn't work so well. It doesn't work well because we are attracting right where we're at. So if we haven't, let's say, if we haven't gone through some type of spiritual, physical, emotional awakening of sorts, we're going to attract someone at that lower vibration in our life. And we're going to continue to repeat those patterns. So we're going to go through one relationship after the next. And what we then, many of the times we do is we're not looking inward to say, what is our responsibility? What is our role in another relationship imploding? We go with what is our natural place from, which is pointing the finger and blaming the other person, thinking that they're the one who is toxic, and we're not taking accountability. And this topic for me is so close to my heart, because when I hit my rock bottom in 2015, I knew I just began my spiritual awakening at that time, and I got some massive. This is a guy that was atheist, that didn't have a God in his life, had no room for it, had no room for a power greater than myself, and was very self-reliant and did everything I could do to control my life. But in that moment, everything, every aspect of my life was 150% out of control. And I knew then that the first step was total surrender. Total surrender. And the second step was begin to say these words. You've heard me say this before, Rachel, I'm not sure, you may not have, but I embrace these words as part of my truth, part of my foundation, which was everything that I thought was a truth was a lie in my life. And everything that I thought was a lie, in fact, may just be the truth. That was my direct correlation or connection to the belief systems that I received as, being born into the family I was born into the faith I was born into the state and the culture that I was born into, and the schooling and every other aspect. And I realized that it had gotten me so far from being able to build financial wealth in my life, but I was literally a broken man, a broken husband, a broken father, a broken son, a broken sibling, a broken friend. And I knew then that it was do or die. And I was willing to go through a process I didn't even know what would look like, which is what you referred to earlier in the broadcast today, which is the rebirthing process. So I want to ask you, Rachel, what does that mean for you? What is a rebirthing? What could a rebirthing process look like for one of our viewers that right now may be in a toxic relationship outside of themselves, and maybe in a toxic relationship just with themselves, without anyone outside of themselves? Yeah. But what can a rebirthing process look like, and what role does the responsibility take in that process?
Beautiful question. It's awakening to the rebirth. Death and rebirth is allowing our old self to die. That means we need to let go of who we think we are. We need to let go of how we define me. I define me as, and that comes from ego. We have to let that die. And it doesn't matter if you define yourself as a race, as a man, as a woman, as a teacher, or a professor, or a scientist, or a whatever, a CEO. None of it matters. It's allowing all of that to die. And that is a painful death. Death rebirth is not this, let's dance around the fire half naked, chanting Om to each other and, writing what your intentions are in a piece of paper. Like, that's not what I'm referring to, because that's not a real death rebirth process. Death is you feel the pain of the old you that you're clinging to so tightly, and you're releasing that and you're letting it go. And you are in the fear of the unknown. What Evis was mentioning before, that a lot of times we cling to the old identity, we cling to the old ways or the old programs because they're comfortable. It's what we know. And the truth is, freedom is only found in the unknown, what we don't yet know. That is where freedom is waiting for us. Emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, mental freedom is awaiting our arrival. And we can't get there if we try to control the process. We know what's going to happen. I'm going to control what happens along the way. Nope, you're not ready to die. You're clinging to the old. So it's dissolving the fear, connecting to the power I have within. That's my own divine power. That is the way of connection. The way of connection is connecting to my soul, my divinity, and allowing everything else around me to die. And that might mean relationships or a job or the money that you have now, because you can't make room for all different kinds of abundance if you're clinging to the old you. So that death process is facing all of your fears and no longer allowing the fears to overtake you and control you. Instead, you go deeply within yourself, you connect to your heart center, you grow your light, and you bring nothing but love to your fears, your pain, your programs. And you just sit and observe and watch yourself evolve into this amazing, magnificent, enlightened being. And you become the gift that the world needs right now.
And
So go ahead.
That is a process.
It is a process. Before you jump in, Jeff, I want to ask you, Rachel, have you personally gone through this transformation in your own life?
How many times you want to know I died?
Yeah, really.
You want how many times I died?
Yeah, really.
The reason I asked you that question is that, where I'm going with this, is that there's a lot of experts out there. There's a lot of so-called teachers, therapists, counselors. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here. This isn't a program about dissing other people, but I'm here about speaking our truth. And I asked the question as really of a setup for you, because I knew the answer. And I know that there's a lot of people watching that may question, like, have you done it? And that's really important, because as a teacher.
Very important.
Right. Tell us why. Why is it important?
Oh, because until you have, let me say this, I want to make this clear. To be in the way of integrity, that's one of the ways of oneness, is to be purely authentic. And authentic doesn't mean I mean what I say. Authenticity means I've been through it. Mm-hmm. I've gone into the sewers. I've covered myself. I've been covered in the piss and shit. And I've learned what it meant to climb out, wash myself off. I mentioned earlier, you cannot create, but I'm going to say a different word. You can't teach authentically what you haven't first become yourself. Otherwise, you lack authenticity.
Hey, before you go any further, Jay, can you type that in?
Well,
how can you type that is we've wanted to do a show on that.
Oh, I'm so passionate about that.
Say it again, Rachel.
You cannot teach others what you haven't first become yourself. And there is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. In our world, we have had decades and decades and decades of reading a bunch of books, gaining a bunch of knowledge, regurgitating knowledge, and then calling ourselves experts. No. There is a deeper, wiser, more divine level of education that we need on this planet right now. We desperately need it on this planet. And don't get me wrong, education in a higher, more elevated form is critical. I have the credentials. Just for people who don't know, I have a master's degree. I went on to specialize in several fields. And I specialized as a therapist in mental, emotional, and behavioral health. I have the expertise. I have the experience. None of that comes close to how many times I had to die and allow myself to die, go through every hell that I went through in order to go inside and find my true self and come out the other side more powerful. That right there is wisdom, and that is priceless. And we need more of that on the planet, not regurgitating a bunch of knowledge we've read in books.
Amen, sister.
Okay, we could take questions from the audience now. I'm telling you, we the four of us have had that conversation many, many times of how deeply the four of us, what you're talking about, Rachel, is is so ingrained in me. Like you just said, ask me how many times I've died inside of me and the work that I've done. And I don't want to glorify it in any way, shape, or form. No. But the four of us have always talked about doing the inner work. Inner work. Are you ready to go in and dive in? It's the bravest thing you could ever do in this lifetime, is to take that dive and inner journey inside of you. What Rachel just said, folks, is we can read tons of books. We can go from the next spiritual teacher to the next spiritual teacher to the next spiritual teacher and gather all of the information and all of the knowledge that we've had. We can go from the next 5-day intensive to the next master class and keep on doing it. Is any of that affording you an interpersonal process to take a deep dive within yourself, to go in, dredge out all of that old shit that's in there, all of that old programming, all of that old conditioning, all of those old behaviors, face all of those feelings, have all of that come up, the most uncomfortable thing that you could possibly do, and then let it die inside of you. And releasing it, and then come to that place, because what's dying is the old.
Yes.
The old is dying inside of us. And then when that happens, that is when we can start to teach the process.
Yeah.
We can start to share the process. Let's take the word teach out of it, because all we're really doing is saying, listen, this is what I've done. This is what Jay's done. This is what Rachel's done. This is what Evis has done. This is what Josh has done. It's the why we do this show. We've all been there. I'm getting hot now. So
while you're hot, grab a camera and just start snapping some photos. This may be the $1 million shot right here, right now.
I'm telling you, one of my pet peeves is looking I said earlier, releasing ourselves from what's happening in the 3D world. I am releasing myself what's happening in the 3D spiritual world. Because of all of that knowledge.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. What are we willing to give up to rebirth? What have you given up to rebirth?
Oh, John, so much. I've given up my attachments to all of that.
There you go.
And said, you know what? The only way my life personally is going to thrive. And what I mean by thrive is my life peaceful. Am I in community, harmony, and equality? Am I projecting that out into the world, oneness out in the world? The only way I can do that is, I'm just going to repeat what Rachel said earlier, is we have to go in and find the discord within us. This is not about being happy. This is not about finding joy, because that joy will just come organically once we start to release the sludge and the toxicity that has been in ourselves, not only in this lifetime, from past lifetimes.
Exactly. Whoo!
And then once we do this, then we can say, you know what? All of whatever process that I have been through, it now resonates for me because it shifted me.
Yes.
Now I can have the authenticity, the responsibility. You know how much responsibility it takes to actually talk about this with others, coming from having the experience of moving through it and coming out the other side. And believe me, you're never really done. It's just a process that we go through every single day. To be honest with you, the only people that I would like to continue to learn from are those who've been through it authentically and have experienced it. I don't want to hear any more cerebral, spiritual stuff that people throw at you, quotes and this and that, and memes every single day, and tell you all of this stuff. As Rachel said earlier, knowledge is wonderful, but knowledge is here.
Yes.
The concepts are here. So we can listen to the concepts and hear all of the concepts, but have you lived it?
I want to interject right here, right
I'm
now.
done.
I asked Jeff what you were willing to give up. What did you lose? And, you know, it's interesting. When I made the conscious decision to begin the journey of coming home, as I refer to it, the journey of coming home to return to love is the essence of what we're really talking about, coming home to ourself. I was willing to lose my own children in that moment. And I've got 3 sons that were in their mid-20s, and you know, unfortunately, it's been a 7-year journey of renewing the relationships with my own sons, and because at the beginning they were not in alignment with the choices that I was making. They didn't understand. But the truth of the matter is that the average brain isn't even fully developed until about age 27. I mean, all 3 of my sons were not even at that age yet. So it was possible that, of course, there's the emotional component of the choices that I had to make in order to cleanse myself, my soul, my mind, body, and soul. There were choices that I had to make that would change the relationship as my children had with me and their mom, my ex-wife. But I was willing to lose my own children to rebirth myself, because if I didn't, I knew that I was on borrowed time. I knew, I had a knowing, an absolute 100%, not a thought, but at the soul level, that I had less than a year to go. If I didn't take massive action to just basically die so that I could rebirth, I wouldn't be here today. And I was willing to go to that extent. That is a massive exchange for a father who had such incredible love for his children, and to navigate through that process, knowing that it was going to be a long road to rebuilding those relationships. But 7 years later, I will share with you and with our viewers is that as painful as it was, and as difficult as it was, and as many tears that I shared with myself and with a few people that I trusted in the process, I wouldn't do it any differently. I would do it exactly the same way, because what I was teaching my children prior to having the courage to show up and grow up and take responsibility and accountability for all of the choices that I had made in my life, I was teaching my children how to repeat the same patterns that I had done. And when I began this healing journey, I understood that if I really want to be a healthy parent for my sons, I had to show up. I had
Beautiful.
to show up for my family.
Mhm.
And even though it was painful for them, and even though they're still coming to terms with it, what I get to do today is practice that it's on their time. It's not on my time. I have no control over how they perceive me. I only have control how I perceive me and what I am willing to do to,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Mm.
And that's, so I want to add to that, because I think it's really important for people to realize, what are you willing to lose? And the answer should be everything. And the biggest things for a lot of people, are you willing to lose the approval from other people, the validation that you seek from other people, the applause, the pat on the back telling you you're good, I validate you, you're valuable from other people. It doesn't matter how other people see you, and whether they're right or whether they're wrong makes no difference. It matters how you see you, that you validate you, that you listen to you. I want to be seen, I want to be heard. Well, that's crazy, asking other people to give to you what you're not willing to give to yourself. And we do this in our relationships, especially our romantic ones. I want you to validate me, I want you to see me, I want you to hear me, I want you to meet my needs. Well, that's insanity. When you're not willing to see you, hear you, validate you, see your pain, your programs, validate them, give them a voice, give them love and nurturing, but you want someone else outside of you to do it, that is powerlessness. That is not divine power. And that part of you is the part of you that needs to die. And the rebirth comes when I am willing to stand here alone and by myself if I need to, but I am not going to do it without love. When I love myself, I am never alone, because I have the love of me, and that love is nothing but divinity and pure raw power. And every human being on this planet has it inside of them. You just have to be willing to let the old you die, the weak, powerless you die, so that you can tap into the power that really is the one that loves and nurtures you through every life experience, whether another human does it or not with you. You have that power. It is you. It's not outside of you. That's the rebirth and the new person in the new age. That's a person of power.
Love that. I love that. Ev, I'm not sure if you can connect with us in this moment. Can you hear us? I think he's, well, if we want to pick up some sign language, I think he's saying, well said, Rachel.
Yeah, really.
Elizabeth Richter says,
what he's saying is, well said, sister.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let it remain there. I want to kind of segue to the next, our next portion of tonight's episode. Is tell us about, what does connection have to do with any of this? The difference between a connection, healthy connections, unhealthy connections, so on and so forth. Rachel, you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes we make out there is we're constantly trying to connect to others in order to get the validation, get the likes, get our needs met, et cetera, et cetera. We've learned to connect in very unhealthy, dysfunctional ways, and we need to wake up and grow up to the fact that we've learned how to do that. That's what society has taught us, and we need to stop. So it's about no more dysfunctional, unhealthy, harmful connections, no more connecting in those ways, going within, doing the real work, creating a healthy connection with myself, period, end. And what does that mean? A healthy connection with myself is somebody who is divinely responsible. And the way of connection, I'm now responsible for connecting me to my higher soul, to my divinity, me to the higher version of me. That is my connection from here forward. I am 100% connected in healthy ways when I am connected to my light, my heart, my soul, whatever you want to call it. I'm connected to my divine self. And if I'm always connected to my divine self, then the connections to other people, to other beings, to nature, to animals, then they are healthy. They grow from a place of love and peace and acceptance and all these wonderful things, because I'm willing to give my connection to myself in that way. That is the way of connection, is connecting to me and my divinity first before I ever connect to anybody else.
So if you haven't, if you're relatively new to this conversation, to this whole process, it's a foreign language. So, Jeff, if you were coaching someone right here, right now, in this moment, which you are, what does it look like when you say, how do you connect to yourself when you're so detached from yourself, and you go into the gas station to fill up your tank? Down the road.
I think the answer to that question, I think we've already answered that part of that question already in the show already, because what we're talking about is so many of us are just disconnected with ourselves. We don't know what's going on. And so why am I feeling this way? Why do I keep on creating the same relationships over and over again? Why do I keep on perpetrating these old behaviors that are getting me the same old results? I mean, these are the questions actually to ask yourself. Mm-hmm. Why, where is my life? What's going on? Why am I creating the same relationships over and over again? The key word is I'm creating those relationships. The reason why is because of the relationship we're having with ourselves.
So again, if someone doesn't know what that looks like, and let's say they've lived in their existence around lacking commitment to the process consistently, lack of consistent choices or behaviors that coming from a loving place or space for themselves, how would you be able to inspire someone? What is the gateway? If in their mind they're speaking from how they haven't been able to do this in the past, how do you think we can help bring them to that gateway of what I refer to as pure nirvana, which is inner freedom?
What I ask people to do simply is look at your life. Look at because it's always about bringing yourself to where am I right now? What's going on in my life right now? Is what's going on in my life and right now raising my resonance and vibration? And it's really, I really feel, and this is the way it was, began my process, that was the question that was asked of me. What's going on in your life? Looking at your life, what's going on inside of you? Really, we have to stop and have somebody take the mirror and hold the mirror up to us by simply asking those questions. What are you continually complaining about in your life that's not there? As I said, are your relationships fulfilling? But it's really about just like stop, breathe, and go look at my life. Write down what's going on in your life, what's not working in your life.
Well, I think most of us can raise our hands and know that, like, we're stuck, we're paralyzed, we're in toxic relationships, we're in toxic thought patterns. Ever, so I'm going to see if you can jump in and share what would be, acknowledging that we're paralyzed. What's the gateway? How do we break through those old patterns, those old thoughts, patterns, and behaviors to begin the journey of coming home? What is that? What can that look like?
It's the inner journey, brother. It's the inner journey. There's no other way to do it. But if you want to inspire someone to go on that inner journey, you have first got to act and behave like that particular version of yourself. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you're looking out here to try and inspire someone to go on that inner journey, preaching all these words of so-called wisdom and knowledge and doing something totally different for your actions and behaviors, how are you turning up in your life?
Right. Yep.
So then we start to encourage our brothers and sisters, and whether you call yourself a coach, a guru, a Shakti, or whatever, I don't care. But you've got to start helping these brothers and sisters go on an introspective journey, on the deep inner journey. Now, whether that comes from, the basics, start breathing, start sitting in your own quiet space. If you don't like meditation, I keep saying it, get out on country. It is your gateway. She is your gateway. We always knew as First Nations people that there is no separation. You are naturally just interconnected when you come on this planet Earth. So how your actions and behaviors are showing up in the world is obviously, as we keep talking about, a reflection of yourself. And of course that is going to interrupt or disrupt other people and circumstances around you. It's because you are acting or behaving a certain way. So you need to start acting and behaving. And how do you integrate that? It's through the balance of the masculine and the divine feminine energy. So you have to start marrying and have this sacred union of those two energies. And like Jay said, this might sound like a lot of, as we call it tonight, new agey talk, so to speak. But if you're watching out this, my brothers and sisters, and currently in the community, whether you're from Rachel's community or on the Real Men Will Talk Live community, you understand the language by now. The time, it's over. The old paradigm has crumbled. My thing is, we're not walking into a golden age. I'm calling it the I'm age, the in age, the I'm age of you being able to create the image that you want to see in the real.
Thank you. Thanks, Ev.
Beautiful.
Rachel, before I segue into the last piece of tonight's topic, have any other thoughts, words of wisdom you'd like to share around where we're at right now?
I think just to piggyback off of your question, is get the expert to help you. It is so important. When you don't, it's okay that you don't know how to do it.
Right.
But stop listening to garbage of people out there. You've got to go to the people who can walk their talk, and they have done it, and they are true experts. And that is challenging because so many people out there claim to be experts in things, but even though it's a challenge, you've got to find the people who truly are, because they're the ones who will guide you back to yourself, to self-empowerment, and give you the skills, the wisdom along the way that you need in order to be successful. Yep. Get the help with experts. They are there, but you have to be willing to invest in yourself to truly achieve that level of self-empowerment.
Yeah. That's fantastic. One of the keys to this is that this is not, I don't want to use the word not, but for the most part, this is something that we've got to do with someone. And that could even be part of the breakthrough. I don't like to ask for help. Oh, I could do this on my own. I don't. And what is all of that? I think really, really it's important to begin the inner journey, maybe answering Jay's question. If you really want to begin it, find someone, as Ev just said, who's being it, who's really, really being it. And if what they're doing, if you really feel using your discernment that they're being it, of what they're moving you through, not teaching you, because you're going to learn so much, but really find someone who is being it, who you feel is being it, who can share their experiences, but give you, be your companion on the journey.
Good.
That's what you want. We talk about a lot on this show about creating a safe place. And we create a safe place for men on this show. But really somebody who is going to be your non-judgmental companion, who is being it on this journey and be your guide through it all the time, allowing you to be in your process, holding a safe space. and then sharing what they've experienced with you along the way.
Good. Thank you, Jeff, for sound. I
Beautiful.
want to switch gears right now. Take us into the next segment of tonight's episode 121 on Real Men, Real Talk Live. This is one of those slippery slopes we're going to jump into right now. We're going to go down that rabbit hole. It's one word, 3 syllables, forgiveness. Rachel, talk to us about the forgiveness component. Are we talking about self-forgiveness, or are we talking about forgiveness of those that have harmed or hurt us, that brought us to our knees in our life because of the past traumas, pain, wounds, experiences, pivots that impacted us that we've been living in sometimes for decades,
Yep.
sometimes our whole life?
Yep.
What role does forgiveness play in this rebirthing to become the new you in a new age?
It is massive, but I'm going to warn people that I teach this in a very different way than a lot of how it's been taught in the past. So we will hear a lot from spiritual teachers and beautiful, amazing people in the past that forgiveness, that's your gateway to freedom. There's truth in that. Out of the 20 universal ways of oneness, forgiveness is number 17. So it is really high up there, which means it's very elevated characteristic to have. But here's where we mess it up. Here's where we screw it up. We try to force forgiveness. We try to force it. We try to, okay, I forgive you. I have to come to forgiveness. I'm going to forgive you. It'll never work. The key to authentic divine forgiveness as an enlightened characteristic, we at some point through our own self-healing realize there is nothing here to forgive. That's going to trigger a lot of people, but here's what it means. The reason why it's so hard to forgive people who have truly hurt us and really caused harm to whatever degrees, the reason why it's so impossible to get there is because we haven't spent the time in honoring our pain. Giving our pain a voice, not in victim consciousness, giving our pain a voice, that I see me, I hear me, I love my pain, I validate it, I bring it up to the surface, I honor it, and I allow it to be here with me in unconditional love. When you really learn the process of the way of honoring your own pain, your own traumas, your own hardships, not the same as victim consciousness. It's the way of honoring. When you really reach a level of honoring your own pain, you alchemize all of it. There is no more pain when you learn how to do that. And when there is no more pain, guess what? There is nothing left to forgive, which means I am now in the way of forgiveness because I have nothing to forgive. I'm more powerful. I'm amazing. I'm healed. I'm whole. There's nothing to forgive here. Thank you for the trauma. I became this powerful being because of it. There is nothing left to forgive. That's the way of forgiveness.
So I'm going to bring you back to memory, down a memory lane. Remember when you were kids and whoever was your caretaker or raising you, let's say one of your siblings, if you had siblings, hurt you in some way, and your caretaker looked at your sibling and said, apologize to your brother. Now I'm going to speak in because I have an older sister. My dad would say to my sister, apologize to your brother. And she'd say, I'm sorry, Jay. And then my dad then would look at me and point the finger and he'd say, what do you say to your sister? She just apologized to you. I'm now forced to say, I forgive you. But we take that experience that I just described, and I lived in that experience as a child. Many of us have, if not all. We take that into our adulthood, and then we repeat that pattern. And then what happens is that so our partner or a friend or a parent asks for forgiveness, and we feel obligated to say, I forgive you. But at the soul or heart space, we have not forgiven them. We haven't gone through a process of forgiveness to release the pain from our mind, body, and soul. And so what we're doing is we're keeping a secret inventory list. And then the next time that they hurt us or they harm us, we bring up the last time, and then they go, but wait a minute, I thought you said you forgave me. Does
Yes.
this sound familiar? Have any of you had this experience, or am I an odd man out?
Oh, I don't know. What I loved about what Rachel said, which was amazing, if we can get to this place. Every experience that we have with another in our life is an experience and a opportunity for us to heal what they have come along to trigger inside of us, and then looking at it as a gift. And so if someone comes along, triggers us, does something, whether they are doing it consciously or unconsciously, that affects us in some way, shape, or form, if we can raise and ascend to the place that says, I'll have all of my feelings, or Rachel said, the feelings or the pain or whatever comes up about that, and then say to myself, thank you for triggering this, being the antagonist to trigger this inside of myself, for me to heal whatever I need to heal and release and let go within myself. That is pretty big. If we can come to that place, and then when we could look at that, there's nothing to forgive.
There's nothing left to forgive.
But we have to come from we have to do our best to come from that place that whatever it is, if we can come to that place, what that person just did, what that person just said, it pissed me off. It hurt so much. And you want to know something? I'll never forgive them. Okay. What is that triggering inside of you right now, that you can have the opportunity now and look at them saying, what a wonderful antagonist who's come along in my life to trigger this, to activate this, that I can learn and grow from, but still have all our feelings about it. And then eventually go, wow, there's really nothing to forgive. Because if we are saying, I have got to forgive them, then we're saying, and I'm going to throw this out there, I'm just another victim to what they said.
There you go.
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on what both of you have really dived into here, and put a deeper microscope on it. First and foremost, it's interesting because so many people think that the first part of the healing journey is forgiveness. In order for me to be free, I want to first forgive others. And what's interesting, Rachel, is when you said forgiveness cannot be forced; it must evolve out of a healed you.
Yes.
And it's interesting because it wasn't until, and I shared this on the last episode or so ago, that the true essence of me finally releasing my bondage and captivity with my own mom, who is a viewer. Mom, if you're watching, you know I love you. You know I love you right here in my heart, and hugs to you in Florida. But I will say that, and I acknowledge that, the true deep essence of forgiveness for my mom didn't happen at the beginning of my journey. It happened 5 freaking years into it. And it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was because I first had to I had to put the focus really on me and take it off of my mom, because many of us, what we do is we put our parents on this pedestal and we hold them on this higher pedestal. And that's why we're still living in inner rage and anger and pain, because we want them to show up for us. And I realized out of the gate, when I was at the beginning of that healing journey, that I needed to put the focus back on me, not on the people that had impacted my life. And it wasn't until I had really done that deep, deep wound shadow healing of self, where I was able to create this relationship with me, myself, and I, and come home to that little boy, that I finally realized that the anger and the rage and the feelings of injustice were no longer there.
There you go.
They were no longer there towards my mom. And I could just see my mom right where she's at, right in the space, and just absolutely love her. And my mom's still alive. Now, keep in mind, my dad has transitioned about 6.5 years or so ago. And the same applies to my relationship with my father, because ultimately, for me to be free of that inner pain, forgiveness is a key component to the journey.
It is, and it is certainly not going to happen right away. It doesn't exist in healing. The healing process, forgiveness doesn't happen right away. It's one of the later elements that we evolve into when we spend enough time in compassion for ourselves, in harmlessness and gentleness for ourselves, in healing ourselves. I will share with you quickly that I was at an event very recently. And part of the event, my book was a gift. My new release book was a gift. And all of the 20 ways of oneness were on this big poster board. And a woman came up and said, "Oh, this is amazing. These are amazing. But forgiveness should be number one." And I just laughed that she would tell the author of the book how to write the book. First of all, I thought that was hilarious. And then I said to her, absolutely not. If you put forgiveness as number one, you will never in your 10 lifetimes from now be able to achieve forgiveness. And the reason is you first have to learn to go inside of yourself and honor your own pain, to bring the way of compassion to your own pain, to bring the harmlessness and gentleness to your own pain, to bring honoring to your own pain. All of those other ways of oneness have to be achieved first. And then when you get to the way of forgiveness, you're like, well, there's nothing left to forgive. That's an easy one. You now breeze through the way of forgiveness and you go on to the next way. And we've learned how to do it backwards. You honor your pain. You don't have anybody to forgive anymore. It's all dissolved and it's all gone. That's emotional freedom.
Wow.
All right, we're done.
Just take a moment here just to let that sink in.
Yeah.
As we are a little bit over the hour, I want to respect your busy schedule. And Jeff, I know you're heading back to the festival that you've been working today. But I do want to invite you maybe to, Jeff, if you could close us out with some closing thoughts around tonight's topic on have you met the new you in the new age? What is this closing thoughts? What is what came forward for you tonight?
Watch the replay. I mean, we just shared an awful lot of tools, experience. I'm not going to use the word wisdom, because the wisdom comes through experience. The wisdom that we share to others come through the experience of the inner journey. And it's the willingness to want to take that inner journey so you could be at peace, harmony, and equality within yourself. My question to everyone out there, and most people out there probably are on some sort of inner journey, but are you really willing to open the doorway to your heart through an inner journey, that the only way you will get to that heart space is peeling each layer of wounding from around that heart space and experiencing your feelings, your pain, your wounding, your past, everything. So you can you can empty it, let it die, and then rebirth into the new you. But the new you is you remembering who you always have been.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes.
Rachel, you're up.
Oh, I can't go after that. That that was beautiful.
Oh, but you
That
can.
was that was beautiful, Jeff. Just magical words. The new you is someone that you don't know yet because you've forgotten who they are. Just as Jeff said, the new you is somebody you haven't really met yet in this lifetime. Okay. And in order to know the new you, to allow the new you to be birthed, and we talk about allowing the old you to die, it means that you've got to dissolve those fears that you have of the unknown, the old identity. What's the new identity? I need to know the new me. You don't need to know anything. You need to allow yourself to die, and you need to be open and spaciousness and just love yourself as the new you gets birthed. It doesn't get birthed overnight. Little bits of the new you will come forth. And the best part about it, when you allow the old you to die, the best part is you cannot help but fall in love with the new you, because it is your divinity. It is the truth of who you are that you just haven't met yet. And it is the most magnificent, beautiful, magical, divine version of a human being. And that's you. That's the new you. So allow yourself to become that.
Mm.
Wow. I want to take a moment here to thank you, Rachel, for joining us this evening. Unfortunately, Ev was not able to get a stable connection. He was out in the outback, as they say over in Australia. He was on the land today doing some massive work with a client. So I want to thank you for joining us this evening so that we can come live. We'll be back next week. Excuse me. I do want to say that tonight's episode was one that was true to my heart, because for me, it was do or die. For me, what I also learned through the process is, if you think you're ready, then show up and grow up. I say it's simple, not easy, but it's possible to rebirth, because I have witnessed the rebirth of myself. And I could say that today, I not only like who I am, I love the man that I have become. And I am just so grateful. I am so grateful that Source, Divine Source, gave me a third chance at this life, in this lifetime. And with that, viewers, if you're struggling, if you're unsure, what your why is at a 9 or a 10, reach out to one of us and let us know that you're ready to do some work, you're ready to navigate into your own rabbit hole, to begin a process of coming home, to return to love. And with that, I love you guys. Thank you for joining us this evening on Real Men, Real Talk Live. We'll be back next week on the next episode of Real Men, Real Talk Live.